It's been nearly a year since a 29-year-old U.S. intelligence subcontractor stunned the world with revelations of eavesdropping on a planetary scale. This week, Edward Snowden spoke to NBC from Moscow, where he's been granted temporary asylum, the first interview of its kind, describing his role, his homesickness, and promising soon fresh revelations. Revelations to come, confirmed by the journalist who helped Snowden leak the National Security Agency's operations, Glenn Greenwald, who spoke to France 24 in Paris. And while the U.S. Secretary of State challenges Snowden to man up and come home to face espionage charges, the rest of the world still digesting the plain fact that the World Wide Web plays by rules made in the USA. What will the lasting impact of Snowden revelations be? Is he a patriot or a traitor? Today in the France 24 debate, Snowden speaks. With us to talk about it, he may be at Harvard University, but Charles Kogan knows a thing or two about the French capital. Welcome back to the show. You're a former CIA bureau chief here in Paris. Joining us here in the studio, Olivier Chopin, recent author in French of Why is America Spying on Us? Welcome to the show. Welcome to Fabrice Epelboin. Welcome back. Fabrice Epelboin, who teaches all about surveillance, privacy, and identity in the digital age at the prestigious French political science institute Sciences Po. He blogs as Euromaestro. Political commentator Jean-Pierre Larochelle, welcome back. And welcome back as well to journalist Florence Hartmann, the recent author in French of Whistleblowers, the Bad Consciences of Our Democracies. The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Twitter and on Facebook, our hashtag F24debate. In his 90-minute interview with NBC's Brian Williams, Edward Snowden discussed everything from where he was on September 11th, outside NSA headquarters, to what spies learn when you look up ice hockey scores on your cell phone. But he also discussed his own future and his past job description, a spy.
Were you trained as a spy? It seems to me spies probably look a lot more like Ed Snowden and a lot less like James Bond these days.
Well, it's no secret that the U.S. tends to get more and better intelligence out of computers nowadays than they do out of people. I was trained as a spy in sort of the traditional sense of the word, in that I lived and worked undercover overseas, pretending to work in a job that I'm not. And even being assigned a name that was not mine. But I am a technical specialist. I am a technical expert. I don't work with people. I don't recruit agents. What I do is I put systems to work for the United States. And I've done that at all levels, from the bottom on the ground all the way to the top. Now, the government might deny these things. They might frame it in certain ways and say, oh, well, you know, he's a low-level analyst. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to use one position that I've had in a career here or there to distract from the totality of my experience, which is that I've worked for the Central Intelligence Agency, undercover, overseas. I've worked for the National Security Agency, undercover, overseas. And I've worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency as a lecturer at the Joint Counterintelligence Training Academy, where I developed sources and methods for keeping our information and people secure in the most hostile and dangerous environments around the world. So when they say I'm a low-level systems administrator, that I don't know what I'm talking about, I'd say it's somewhat misleading.
Charles Kogan, what's your reaction to that?
Well, I think there's a central fact in all this, and that is that Mr. Snowden, he signed a secrecy agreement with the CIA not to divulge information that is classified. This is an agreement that lasts a lifetime. So he has to answer to that. Despite what one might think of his revelations and whether they were useful or not, the point is he is in violation of a secrecy agreement and he has to answer to it.
And do you think he endangered national security?
I think if you listen to Secretary Kerry and other figures in the Washington establishment, yes, definitely.
Jean-Pierre Larochelle.
Well, I think it's quite true, and he admits in this interview that he broke U.S. law and he broke this agreement. I think you're referring to Security Form 312. But he also took an oath of office, which was to uphold the Constitution, and he points out quite clearly that that was his concern. And the reason why he released these documents, according to him, is he believed that the Constitution was under threat by the NSA security officials and the programs that they were running.
Fabrice Belpoint?
The American Constitution is definitely under threat. There is absolutely no doubt. So I guess Snowden was between a rock and what's the American expression? And a hard place. Definitely what the NSA is doing is against the American Constitution. So my take is that Edward Snowden took the right decision.
Charles Kogan, is he, in effect, upholding the Constitution?
I noticed that one of your interlocutors is a blogger. I'm a blogger too, and I've done a couple of blogs on this issue. The first one was entitled, "Better Read Than Dead." This is recalling a motto during the Cold War, except that it's the same pronunciation but a different word. My word was R-E-A-D. In other words, I can't get very excited about the possibility that someone is prying into my private life. Now, there are basically two kinds of data that the NSA is reproached for. The first is the metadata, which does not involve content. It involves information about contacts. The second is the NSA's ability to tap into the servers of internet companies, and that's the PRISM program, and get information off the internet. Now, I'm doing a project, a research project on the issue of security versus privacy. I'd like to get to the bottom of this because, you know, if you talk to these establishment figures in Washington, they say, and they're reputable people, they say that the NSA has followed legal procedures in obtaining information. And I plan to do a number of interviews on this and come up with a long article on it.
Olivier Chopin?
I think Snowden can appear at the same time as a traitor on one side and as a hero, a whistleblower on the other side. It depends on the kind of legitimacy you consider. Nowadays we have something like two competing legitimacies at the same time, one coming from the civil society and individuals and another one coming from the states and governments. It's clear, it may be a bit too abstract to say that he endangers the Constitution of the United States. The National Security Agency acts upon the law. There are several laws coming from 2004, the Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Protection Act, 2007, the Protect America Act. It depends on how you will interpret those laws.
What you're saying is that it's not so much what the NSA did, it's the leeway that they got from the laws that were passed after the 2011 attacks on the World Trade Center.
Exactly. There is a political debate about how we should interpret those acts, those laws, those legal restrictions to those activities, referring to the Constitution. But it's not very clear right now that there are so many dangers for the Constitution itself. The Constitution may be the protection for the American people against the NSA in the end, not a tool in the hands of the NSA.
Florence Hartmann?
Well, I don't agree in that way that if the laws were really authorizing the authorities, the government, the NSA, or whoever, to do exactly what they are doing and what was disclosed by Snowden, so they would have discussed and debate with a special committee within the Congress, which didn't happen. So there is a different way of scrutiny in democracy, which goes for intelligence issues, for instance, through specific committees within the Parliament, the Congress in the case of the US. and through the pressure of the public opinion or the press, or the whistleblowers if it's related to information the press cannot access to. So why the government decide by itself? There is no government in any democracy which can decide by itself what is secret or not. There are laws which define very clearly what is secret or not. The law, it's transparency, the secrecy is a limitation, a specific limitation under law. And if you don't have this respect, which is a little secrecy, a lot of transparency, you don't have any more democracy. But you need to have secrecy. But this secrecy should be legitimate, covered by law, limited, and limited the maximum, and shouldn't be against the freedom, all other freedoms, and they should coexist. So that's quite difficult, but we have a real problem in this case. There was an abuse by the US government. There is abuse, surely, by European government with this kind of, but we need someone, and we cannot have everyone because there are secrecy in the story. We need someone who says, stop somewhere.
Charles Kogan, do you agree? A good spy spies and will spy as much as possible up to the limit where they're told not to spy.
Well, you know, another thing the U.S. is reproached for is its spying on foreign leaders, and we had the example of the tapping into Angela Merkel's cell phone back starting in 2002 when she wasn't even chancellor. Now, she has been reassured by President Obama that this sort of thing will stop. But he didn't go beyond that. And the Germans, who have taken this very much to heart, this whole question of spying on them, they sent a delegation, a political level delegation to Washington, and asked for a no-spy agreement, which was declined, and at that point, the German delegation left Washington. By the way, I've done a blog on this incident. So what is the answer? At the time of the joint statement by Obama and Merkel, Merkel said she wasn't satisfied with the outcome of the talks. Now, at the same time, Obama said that we do not have a blanket agreement to spy on any country. We don't have a blanket agreement against spying. Now this technically or literally could be true, probably is. But the fact is that there is this Five Eyes system whereby the Anglo-Saxon countries have a signals intelligence agreement. It dates back to 1946, which was just between Britain and the United States, and it deals with signals intelligence. It doesn't deal with spying on each other. However, there's an informal consensus that you don't spy on Anglo-Saxon countries. And for instance, when I was on a visit to London back in the 1980s, I got the very distinct impression that unilateral intelligence operations in Britain were off the table. So the Germans wanted to get in on this system, and Obama's reply is we don't have a blanket agreement on against spying, renouncing spying on any country.
Fabrice Ebelpoint.
Well, the Five Eyes Agreement actually has been extended to several countries, including France, by some agreement named Lustre, and who has been signed in 2010. Then this is part of the Snowden revelations. Actually, today, as of today, France and the United States can exchange information about their own citizens. So this echelon who has been extended by the internet and who became something that we now have all discovered as the Snowden affair is now including several countries like France and Israel, and probably Sweden also. And tomorrow we'll probably discover that many other European countries are part of this Five Eyes agreement. And those countries are spying their own population. And that's a major democratic threat.
As Le Monde revealed when it came to the French...
yeah, and 6 months earlier, The Guardian revealed the exact same thing.
A few months back. Now, Edward Snowden, in that interview on NBC, saying there's more revelations to come. One of the two journalists who helped him go public said, as with a fireworks show, you want to save your best for last. Glenn Greenwald, who Tuesday spoke to France 24's Douglas Herbert.
The questions that people have is toward what ends is this surveillance being put, and what is being done with the communications they're collecting. There, of course, have been very significant scandals in the U.S. and other countries in the past about political abuse of surveillance, targeting political opponents. And so one of the questions that we're now working on answering is exactly who is it specifically in the U.S. that they target for the most invasive forms of surveillance? Are these really people we think of as terrorist threats, or are they instead foreign policy critics and scholars and professors and civil rights leaders? And I think the answers to those questions will help shape how the story is remembered.
So should we expect now the most startling revelations are still to come, is what he's hinting?
Yes. In fact, his editor has also pointed out that the documents that have been released so far, which have been quite numerous and quite interesting, represent less than 1% of the documents that they have in their possession. So we should expect maybe 100 times more.
Olivier Chopin, your thoughts on what the next batch of revelations will bring?
I really ignore totally what is to come. It's interesting to note that Snowden himself explained that he was a patriot, a true patriot, by refraining from disclosing things irrelevant to the general public and that could endanger, for example, spies abroad or American militaries on the ground. And so he explained that he had a consciousness about his political responsibility towards the American government, and as such was no traitor. So maybe the following revelations will still be in that direction, not really revealing things too dangerous for operatives or people on the ground.
What was quite interesting was that he did somewhat tacitly acknowledge that among those secrets are military secrets, but he indicated his promise that those would not be published. And I think that was one of the concerns of the U.S. government, obviously.
All right, those military secrets, he says, will not be published. We're going to hear, when we come back, the official reaction of the U.S. government to what Edward Snowden had to say, and also to the fact that right now his home is Russia. Stay with us. This is the France 24 debate.